Thank you very much for joining us for Bible study today. This month we are going to be focusing our attention as we reflect upon this matter of personal evangelism, or as it is called by different persons, friendship evangelism or lifestyle evangelism. But what it does is to shift our focus away from the evangelistic proclamations and the preaching that comes from the pulpit. And we're not suggesting that those are irrelevant, but we are talking this month about how we can relate at a more personal level as we bring the gospel to those of our loved ones, our friends, and make it as personal and intimate as possible. So I want to welcome you for joining us this afternoon, and I trust that as we share this word, that the Lord will bless you, the Lord will encourage you, that the Lord will point out even to us what more needs to be done to get us sharpened and ready for the opportunities that will be presented as we interact with our friends and loved ones. With me today is Brother Steve. Happy to have you with us today, Brother Steve. Thank you for taking the time to come to be part of this study. As we always call it, it's a conversation around the word. And that's what we want to maintain today. We want to look at the story of Zacchaeus in Luke's Gospel chapter 19 and use that as a foundation for our discussion and what are some of the aspects necessary as we seek to bring our friends to a knowledge of our Lord and His saving grace. So I'm going to be inviting Brother Steve to read for us Luke's Gospel chapter 19. He's going to be reading from verse 1 through to verse 10. Let's hear the word of the Lord.
So Luke 19 says, Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see Jesus, who Jesus was, but being a short man, he could not because of the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I may stay at your house today. So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. All the people saw this and began to mutter, he has gone to be the guest of a sinner. But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possession to the poor, and if I cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay them back 4 times the amount. Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save what was lost.
The word of the Lord.
Amen.
Thank you very much for reading this passage for us. So the text really puts us in a situation where we find ourselves in community. Zacchaeus was a part of the community. He had a portfolio, responsibility, a job, profession that some members of community did not appreciate, and sometimes the ethical issues and the moral issues involved in being a tax collector caused members of community to be upset with Zacchaeus. And by extension, one can say he did not have many friends. He did not have many persons who would readily identify with him. But Jesus came along, and we want to use this as a basis to guide us as we seek to establish some of the basic principles that are involved in ensuring that our friends become exposed to Christ. What are some of the lessons that you have seen from this, Brother Steve?
All right, so you can look at it from both the point of view of Jesus and how he dealt with it,
Yes.
and from the point of view of Zacchaeus and
Yes.
how he received the information.
Yes.
So The passage says that Zacchaeus heard about Jesus.
Yes.
And something piqued his interest.
Yes.
Not just hearing and move on,
Yes.
but hearing and want to hear more.
Yes.
So he went out of his way and climbed a tree because he just wanted to see this person.
Yes.
They say he was short in stature.
Yes.
And so he felt going up into the tree and have that vantage point of looking down
Yes.
would be able to see Jesus.
Yes.
I don't know if he was interested in communicating with Jesus, but more so just to see this man and have an interest.
Yes.
So the persons in our society hear about Jesus.
Yes.
And persons in our society might be interested in getting more information about Jesus.
Yes.
A lot of times that interest comes about for one, if they are in a crisis situation,
Yes.
and because of their grandmother, and thank God for grandmothers and grandfathers, they now turn to,
Yes.
or a case of seeing somebody and the behavior of that person made them want to say, boy, I want what they have.
Yes.
Which begs the question, as believers, are we behaving in such a way that people want what we have?
Yes.
You know, that's the first question, because that is what attracted Zacchaeus.
Yes.
He heard about Jesus,
Yes.
but wanted more information about
Right.
Jesus because maybe of what he heard.
Right.
Are we in that position in our workplaces,
Yes.
on the street,
Yes.
at the pharmacy, wherever we are? Are we behaving in such a manner that will cause people to want to find out? They might not know that you're a Christian,
Right.
but by your behavior,
Yes.
by the things you say,
Yes.
attract them to you,
Yes.
and therefore wanting to hear more about Jesus.
What strikes me from this text is it's not so much about how much Jesus was talking, but his action. His action. And it is something that I think that as believers, each believer has the opportunity to act in a godly manner that will cause others, as you have put it, to be attracted to what they see, what they have witnessed, what they have heard. And I like this aspect of it. And one of the things that we're saying is that we're not doing this proclamation from the pulpit. It is not an evangelistic, quote-unquote, crusade that we are so accustomed to. That's not what we are about. It's not so much a preaching. It is more a doing.
Right.
It's more a doing. And therefore, I like the fact that Jesus knew what was in Zacchaeus' heart, knew where his mind was, knew what the issues were. It seemed to me, based on his expression, and you can comment on this, that he was having a moral crisis in his life. Because when you look at the restitution, the confession, right, that if he had, since he has, by his job, that's interesting part of it, yes.
The fact that
Yes.
he was the one who offered this information.
Yes.
So it shows for me that there was some level of conviction.
Yes.
And the opportunity came for him to come out and say, but
Yes.
if I want, remember I said earlier on, it is from 2 points of view.
Yes.
One from
Jesus.
Zacchaeus' point of view and one from Jesus' point of view. Before we go to the part about Zacchaeus' response, we just want to highlight how Jesus approached it.
Yes.
So in verse 5 it says, Jesus said, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must go stay at your house today. And being who he was, the tax collector,
Yes.
and knowing that they are not just him, the two of them together,
Yes.
but there were other people around, Jesus would have been conscious of what people might say.
Yes.
But he did not regard that. He said, he didn't say, come and let us go down to church.
Yes.
Or come and let us go to a place of worship.
Yes.
But he said, I want to go to your house.
Yes.
Which creates the sense in Zacchaeus of acceptance.
Yes.
And so when we approach people,
Yes.
we have to give them a sense of acceptance even if we know their story.
Yes.
And a lot of times, you might hear about a person's story without knowing the real story behind the story.
Right.
And you create a posture,
Yes.
an attitude towards a person.
Yes.
And it's similar to the message on Sunday.
Yes.
With Nathan.
Yes, Nathaniel.
Nathaniel, sorry.
Yes.
When Nathaniel said, he made a statement, can anything good come out of Nazareth?
Yes.
So it's a preconceived notion
Yes.
of what the persons are who
Yes.
come from a certain area.
Yes.
Jesus accepted Zacchaeus
Yes.
in spite of
Yes.
where he was from.
Yes. And you, as you said that, I want to make another point as it relates to not just the acceptance, but the comfort. He's going to whose house? Zacchaeus' house. I mean, a man is comfortable in his house.
Right.
You know? And therefore Zacchaeus would be at ease.
Comfort in his own space.
Yeah, would be relaxed. And that's an important part of communicating the gospel in the context where people are comfortable. Right? And sometimes people are not comfortable to go to church and be public. You know? And this gives the opportunity for us to be able, as Jesus did, to invite himself. Yeah? And that's an opportunity that we have when we have our friends, don't you?
Yeah.
We don't necessarily wait for an invitation to go to your friend's house.
Verse 6 says,
Yes.
So he came down at once
Yes.
and welcomed him gladly.
Gladly.
So he was so happy
Yes.
that Jesus made the offer.
Yes.
And so he said, absolutely, come,
Yes.
let's go right
Yeah.
now.
Right.
Because again, it gives them one, out of the crowd's eye.
Yes.
Two, the crowd heard that he said, I'm going to your house.
Right.
So it creates that sense of acceptance for
Yes.
him and pride.
Yes.
To say, look who's coming to my
Yeah,
house.
my friend.
Jesus.
Yeah, he has become my friend. You know, because truthfully, all of us know there are so many people in communities, homes that we don't go. You know, be comfortable, right? But Jesus invited himself. Zacchaeus responded gratefully, and so that's one of the lessons and one of the principles that we can emphasize. You know, make people comfortable as you share the gospel. Do not go to make people feel on the defensive. Do not necessarily make people feel uncomfortable and as though they are in a courthouse,
Right.
being grilled by a lawyer. You know,
And accused.
yes, that's important. You know, he responded to Zacchaeus' need. He understood what Zacchaeus' need was, and he went down to Zacchaeus' house.
So verse 8 says, but Zacchaeus stood up
Yes,
and said to the Lord. So he's talking directly to Jesus,
Yes.
not thinking about the crowd around
Yes.
him. He said to Jesus, look, here and now I give half of my possession to the poor.
yes.
So the conviction was so strong.
Strong.
But the fact that Jesus accepted him publicly,
Yes.
he wanted to make a public statement of what form of restitution that he would want to give.
To do. So in terms of his understanding of salvation, in terms of his understanding of that conversion experience, it required restitution. You know, and it's important as we communicate the gospel to people to allow them to express themselves. They know what their needs are. They know where they're coming from spiritually. They know the issues that are tugging at their hearts and that which needs for them to be able to have the assurance from God. And so he knowing fully well that for him to step back out in the public and have any authentic experience,
Right.
then the concern of the community, he knows that he has
needs to say something.
And I like the extent to which he went in order to address the
Not
concern.
just to return it, but
Yes.
to return 4 times.
4 times. And that was the Levitical rule, you know, guidelines. Yeah? It was to go 2. He doubled it.
So it is not about where you come from.
Yes.
It's not about what you do.
Yes.
It's not about how you look.
Yes.
It's easy for us to accuse, like Jesus and the woman at the well.
Yeah.
She obviously was sleeping around with different men.
Yes.
But Jesus didn't accuse her
Yes.
up front. she was the one who said to Jesus that you're right.
Yeah.
He is not mine.
Yeah.
But the fact that the way he said it endeared her to say, go and find other persons to come and see this man.
Yeah.
So it gives you a sense of comfort
Yes.
in your relationship with this person, because the person is not coming to accuse you of being a prostitute.
Yes.
accused you of being a thief,
Yes,
in the case of Zacchaeus.
Zacchaeus.
But he's saying to them, in spite of what you have done, I accept you.
Yes.
Come as you are.
Yes. Yes. And, very often, Brother Steve, sometimes persons go out of their way to make this special effort to go find a person who they call a sinner, to find somebody who's not quote-unquote saved. What can we say about this casual way? I mean, Jesus is passing. Chances are he was just going to pass through town.
There are many times,
Yeah.
and I know all of us are guilty of this. You go into a place and you say, good morning, how
Yes.
are you?
Yes.
And you don't really listen for the answer.
Yes.
You move on to the next thing.
Yes. Yes.
And in listening, you can pick up what is going on with the person. I remember some years ago, I had a co-worker, and as I would go in anybody's space, I go in and say hi.
Yes.
And the way the person responded to me, I knew that was not the normal response.
Yeah.
So I started to dig.
Yes.
And it turned out that she had major issues at home
Yes.
with children, with spouse.
Yeah.
But it gave the opportunity for me to share
Yes.
that there is a solution to it.
Yeah.
And the point I'm making here is the opportunity can come anyway.
Anywhere.
Anytime, anyhow.
Yes.
You have to be in the position to identify it, number one, and then respond to it.
Yes.
And again, the response should never be in an accusatory way,
Yes.
but more so conciliatory.
Yes.
To say, this happens to many people,
Yes.
but here is a solution.
Yes. Yes.
And that is what I think more than anything else we need to be talking about.
Right.
That the opportunity will always present itself.
Yes.
We now need to be in a position to hear
Yes.
and to respond.
And to respond to it. Let's talk a little bit about the response here. Gracious. Considerate.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the actual.
Yeah. Jesus responded to him. Yeah. Salvation has come.
Verse 9, yeah.
Yeah. To this house today. Salvation has come.
So why did he say to his house? First of all, he's still on the street.
Yes.
But he said, salvation has come to this house.
Yes.
And I'm assuming this house meaning Zacchaeus' house. So he's saying, because of my being able to communicate with you,
Yes.
and you accept one who you are,
Yes.
and also what the solution can be.
Yes.
It is not just for you.
Yes.
It is for your
Your
household.
household. So what we want people to see is that even in the most casual conversation that we're having, there can be life transforming experiences. Yeah? Not just for the individual, but the expansion of that. And that's something that we see here. That's something that we saw with the woman at the well. She went back to her community, and the community people invited Jesus. These were the same people who had blocked Jesus' path, in Samaria from going through. And the disciples said, Father, let's call on fire from above and burn them up. But here is a woman who was now able, right, to communicate because of how Jesus treated her, right, and the benefit. So we should always be mindful that behind all of our conversations, behind all of our interactions, are opportunities for salvation that the Spirit of God is waiting to use.
So, question:
Yes.
Are we saying here that we must go out with the intention to target people, or are we saying that when the situation presents itself, you respond to it?
As I said, in the salvation story, there are times when you have to specifically go. But there are times, as in this...
As in target, I just want to be clear, as in targeting persons.
When you say target persons...
So we're talking about if you go into... I go to church on Sunday.
Yes.
And I hear the pastor say, you want to have stars in your crown.
Yeah.
So you must go and seek them out.
Yes.
And you deliberately pursue someone, maybe because you know the story before.
No, that's not what we are saying. That's not what we are saying. We are saying that in your everyday normal encounters, as you relate to people, you know, as we explore the Bible, you know, and we ask ourselves, what are some of the issues that arise in the conversations that we have with people? It's amazing, right? They talk about children, they talk about spouse, they talk about work, they talk about their homes, they talk about their communities, they talk about health issues, they talk about all of this spare life, you know. That's what life, that's what combines life, that's what life is composed of. You know, all of these experiences. And what we are saying is the opportunity presents themselves, right? And they don't have to be a forceful targeting, directing at people. No, it is as you interface, as you interact. Acts of kindness, acts of graciousness, acts of empathy and sympathy and understanding and open doors and opportunities for us to share. And the point I'm driving at here is you don't have to create a scene. No. You go into the situation and just by your behavior, your interaction, things will happen and opportunities will come. And out of those opportunities, you are able to bring somebody into an opportunity. I just love how Jesus took Zacchaeus out of the people, out of the public sphere. Right. He took him in his private domain, you know, where he's most comfortable. Right? He took him away from the public. Crowd was there, you know. But he took him away from that. Right? Because as you can imagine, the people themselves start to quarrel. Look who him gone into the sinner house. Look who him gone have lunch with. Verse 7 says, all the people saw this and began to mutter. He has gone to be the guest of a sinner. You know, accusing. Very much accusing him. It's the reason why they call him wine bibber and all of that, because he went there among these people. Right? But the beautiful thing is that Jesus took him out of public view, had that private, personal conversation, and that's something that we need to develop and practice more of. We need to practice more of that as we take people out of the public view, and so you can hear their heart, hear their expression, their genuine expression, without any sense of condemnation. And with all that is going on, even without reference to COVID, there's so many things that happen in life. Life, as you said, life happens. And there's so many opportunities, and the challenge sometimes is that we don't listen out for those opportunities. And that's all we're saying. You don't have to create a scenario. Life is a scenario in itself. And all you have to do is listen for the opportunities and take them. I thank you, Brother Steve, for this conversation. Really appreciate it, and I look forward to having more with you as we go along throughout this month. And I truly want to say that this evening is another mind-opening experience for us as we see Jesus in operation, you know, dealing with those who society have an issue with. and there are so many people that society have an issue with, you know. But Jesus came and he showed us by his action. He identified with him. He took him out of public space. It's not everybody you need to be engaging publicly about their salvation issue and story. He took him into his home where he was most comfortable. And I think that that's a lesson that we need to learn. It is not everything need to be public and public worship and public crusade and all of that kind of thing. We need to take opportunities more. And as you said, all of them have their own space. But there are times, if you look at one-on-one, it would have a greater impact. Because you are now have an intimate conversation with the person in front of you. Right. And that's something that we're asking and commending that every believer be alert to the Spirit. Be alert to the consciousness that the Spirit wants you to have. Every casual interaction, each and every day, holds the opportunity for a life-transforming experience. Amen. Speak the word of the Lord. Encourage. Act in a manner. Display the attitude of Christ as we do not go about condemning people, making people have a sense of belonging and identity and make life comfortable in their space so that they can share their hearts with you. I pray for you today. If you are one of those who perhaps have been hurt because somehow somebody have been so direct and direct at you and condemning of you and your behavior that you probably have kind of shunned God. I pray that you will find somebody who, like Jesus, the way he treated Zacchaeus, will treat you in the same way. Amen. In fact, the Lord is willing and ready to treat you just the same way he treated Zacchaeus. So I pray that the Lord will bring somebody into your life who will be able to understand you where you are and to empathize with you as they share the love of Christ, the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. I pray that this week, if you are a Christian, that you will assess your own attitude and approach. And if the Spirit of God is saying, tone it down, then you need to tone it down. If he's saying to you, be a little bit more alert to the concerns of people around you, hey, listen to him. And as I said, more than anything else, demonstrate through your actions that you love them, you care for them. Go to their home when nobody else thinks you should. That's perhaps the biggest statement of communicating acceptance to any person. I thank you for having joined us, and I pray God's blessing upon you. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up the light of his countenance upon you and give you his peace. And we say, Amen. 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 Thank you for being with us today.